All right, so the goal of this panel discussion is really to mostly to enable audience interaction. So what I'd like is for the audience to come up with some questions for the panelists to address. Either a question can be targeted to an individual panelist, or it can be a general question for everyone or any subset of the panelists. I mean, if you guys can't come up with any questions, I'll do it on my own. But I'll rather hear from you guys. We'll wait for Adam to join the panel. What's up?
I did communicate. We were in enough. There wanted the microphone on the table. So everybody's done.
All right. So let's. So we have a question back here. All right. So before you ask your question, briefly identify who you are for posterity. Okay. Actually, it would be ideal if someone could operate that camera and ask the question.
Okay. My name is Lake Watkins. I work with Ben Dirks' group down in Hong Kong on their API project. I noticed, James, that you mentioned during your discussion that we should start making decisions now to affect the future. So I was interested in asking you and the rest of the panel, once you all get home, what's one decision that each of you would make that would make the world a better place when there's no, when it's the end of economics, or there's no value in human labor, or there's machines that don't understand the subjective self or emotion?
Let James start.
So how do we prepare for the end of the world?
The first thing is that whilst I talk about a lot of problems that can come from automation, I see a very clear disjunction. There's something intrinsically valuable about being human. From our conscious experience, what we are is the basis of reality. So when I talk about problems that are coming from automation, I'm then also talking about the fact that our society, certainly in the West, has become so capitalist in nature. For good reason, because for many years, capitalism was the engine of growth, economic prosperity, which then flowed on to human advantage. Economic prosperity brings us unique goods, it brings us good diet, it brings us health. And all of these things are goods because they help human life. I'm very humorous in my own personality. The problem that's happening now, however, is I can see a divergence taking place. That because companies have become somewhat divorced from their shareholders, in fact, in some cases by design, shareholders are they want the company to just make profits. They don't want to really get involved in how the company makes profits. They just want the companies to make profits, and they invest, sometimes through third-party brokers, in order to get profitability in companies. Now, companies are not human. The goals of companies are generally not human. They are there to bring returns to their shareholders, and they provide a kind of moral disjunct between the shareholders and what those companies can actually do. Now, I see in things like automation that the problems are going to come because of this structural change, when we change from a workforce where human breadwinners bring in money for their family and how that satisfies the psychological need. And I can see that the system above us, the capitalist system, if I was a sovereign, I actually support capitalism, what I have for many years. But I can see it, I believe it's now diverging. And we have to, as people, assert our true value, which is our humanity, our conscious experience. And we have to say, look, we have to think about these things. The world, the system, the government, they exist for us. They don't exist for themselves, to make money, to make profits. They exist for us. We have to keep humanity in the equation. So really all I'm saying is that the way the trend is at the moment is that everybody will be able to work, and the system is not really designed to cope with that. The system is encouraging because of the way it's constructed. But so under it all, I hope is a message of sort of hope that we have to assert our value in the system as people, as human value. You have to say, look, there is something intrinsically valuable in humanity. Let's not throw it out just for the pursuit of a capitalist ideal.
So, Jack, do you have any response to this question?
Yeah, in answer to your question, I thought that's right, yeah, I've almost started. In answer to your question, me personally, well, I'm currently, I don't want to work in as an economist because I kind of dissolved my own job in a very sort of singularity way. I advised my employers in the government that it was no longer economically feasible, and so I got a package and left, retired early. But, and that was in a technology-related area of radio communication. But my own, so I now work, I'm truck driving and working as construction engineering. I mean, I just work wherever I can in part-time journalism. But I've made my decision as far as the future is concerned, the longer-term future. I mean, in the short term, I just have my mortgage and buy a few shares maybe. But in the longer-term future, I want to join the moral economy, right? Which is the last slide there. And just make a living telling people like the end is nigh, which is what economists always do anyway. They're kind of modern day Cassandras. They're always saying things could get worse. They predicted 9 out of the last 5 recessions according to Paul Samuelson. So we just love telling people bad news. And
so the solution is that when the jobs are going away, people can make a living paying other people to tell them that the end is near.
That's right. That's right. A biblical prophet is basically my job description at the moment. And yeah, really, I mean, hopefully, in the meantime, I'd like to make a little bit of money, in journalism doing that, but also, spread, hopefully, it gives some useful advice to my fellows. Just following on from what James said.
So what is the useful advice?
Well, the useful advice is like assume the crash position, right? Because that's what's going to happen in terms of people who are adapted to the old environments. As I said, it's a speciation event, or effectively, and a drastic change in the environment. And I mean, obviously the greenhouse things coming at the same time as usual. Bad stuff doesn't happen once; it's usually 2 or 3 bad things at once. So. It's going to be a rocky road coming forward. Just quickly, just following on from James' argument about the impersonality or the loss of consciousness from the system. Consciousness is the foundation of morality. The interaction between subjective minds is the basis of what makes us human and what makes us special as far as creation is concerned, for one of the better word. As I said, instrumentally, consciousness is disappearing from the economic system as AI takes over. AI is unconscious. It's smart, but it's completely has no feeling, right? And institutionally, of course, the free market is unconscious. It is broadcast, advertised as an unconscious, self-regulating system that doesn't have conscious control. That's consciousness has been displaced from the free market, because we've seen this with the GFC. So consciousness is disappearing from our system. That's not a good sign.
Right. So the message from the economist, as my father used to say, is put your head between your legs and kiss your butt goodbye. We will also hear more positive news in the future as the day goes on. But I think it's interesting to look at all the different perspectives. Another question?
I want to hear from all of them.
Want to hear from everyone? All right. Well, we may not get to another question, but let's go on. Yeah.
So one of my classmates at Senior University actually wrote a book. Loba will steal your jobs, but that's okay. So I think that's definitely a lot of anxieties about automations and about all jobs being taken over by machines. However, there's also an entire different joint in terms of people are realizing we are really stuck in, technology, and we really have to pay attention to ourselves. And then for myself, as a cancer patient that actually goes through treatment, I mean, before that, in 2011, I went right now, and I always eat healthy. So I was always one of these person who just keep going, and then, like I told you, sometimes people in not knowing their stress, they know their stress, but they just didn't pay attention, right? And I was kind of in the same boat. But then after that, now I have awareness, a consciousness that, pay attention to my body. And mindfulness is talking about mindfulness, mindfulness meditation, mindfulness eating, just being aware, of yourself and also for other people, your environment. And then it's interesting because Singularity University is probably, one of the universities that's highly promoting technology, AI, robotics, all this crazy technology. And we have a part where the movie producers actually came in and do presentations in the fear of that all these people are going to come out of Singularity University and just focus on pure technology and forget about human. They wanted to remind us that storytelling is important. And then myself as a human-centered designer, how do you design products that will be effective for your users? You have to pay attention to your user needs, to their desires, so that you can enable yourself, whatever product that you design, to actually serve the user needs. And then, then you can get a better, business success from that. So I think there's definitely different trends going on. It is true that machine will take away a lot of other jobs, but I believe that there's other jobs that will be created too.
Yeah, so look, I do believe that there's some pretty significant possibilities that there is a negative future ahead. But that very much hinges on what we do now. And assuming the crash position isn't going to achieve very much, except maybe shield you from the first negative effects, the first shockwave after they will be blown away. But there is so many possibilities for the future with technology that are extremely beneficial. Now, assume that we achieve something akin to Drexlerian nanotechnology, or in I guess more near-term ways of thinking about it, 3D printers that can print what you want on demand. So what we may be entering into is a society, a post-scarcity society of all sorts of resources that we depend and we strive and fight over today. And so a lot of the reason why we're fighting about these resources is because of the limited access to them. What we can do today, and this was your question, is work towards steering technology in the direction of being able to benefit everybody. And by benefiting everybody, then I believe it will reduce the likelihood that we'll be fighting over scarce resources. And even real estate. There's so much matter in this galaxy. There's so much matter in the universe. I mean, ultimately, who knows what we'll be able to do. But even in the solar system, there's plenty of possibility for even real estate. So the rent-seeking behaviour that was discussed, I think that's an extremely important issue to discuss. I think we need to look at that. Do we really need to own, more than our neighbour in order to have a good life? Is the quality of our lives judged in reference to the person next door to us, or the person down the road, or Joe Blogs on TV, right? Maybe we should just focus on learning how to be happy based on our own preferences, and not trying to be better than the person next to us. That's all. No, I think we should move on.
Well, we need to move on. Yeah, actually, I'm curious to get the opinion of the people in the room. So how many people in the audience believe that eventually robots will take over all human jobs? Raise your hand if you believe that.
All human.
Every human job. the audience to answer. Now, if there are some human jobs that are not going to be taken over by robots, what would be those jobs that are more uniquely human? What's some of those? Managers. Priests, if you know, said that. That's a fairly good example. Psychiatrists, okay.
Well, even with a lot of manufacturing already being automated, there's still a demand for homemade or handmade goods. I don't know how.
Yeah, so just handcrafted goods, just for the human and aesthetic experience of life.
Well, there's some value, but it's been sold as like homemade or handmade.
Yeah.
I think the question you're asking is, what jobs can robots take over? But it kind of misses out on a lot of the convergence of technology and humanity, where people become more empowered by their iPads, like you said, and presumably getting these iPads into our skulls is, I think, a bigger question that opens up a lot more market space, where perhaps we don't have a collapse of the economic model.
Yeah, the questions of humans versus robots, sort of, that presumes we're not going in the solid direction. So I think that's true. When you say, they'll take our jobs, who is us if you have beings that are half human and half robot, and then the next year, a quarter human and 3/4 robot, or whatever. So if cyborgs are the way things go, then the question becomes ill-posed. So any other suggestions regarding which jobs will be the last to be taken over? What kind of robots repair robots?
Well, they can, but somebody's got to repair the robots.
How about a self-repairing robot?
But somebody originally designed the robot.
That's true, but he could be dead by the time the robot's Perhaps.
Yeah, we can't hear you, so Ben, can you pass the microphone to people?
Sure, it just takes a while.
I said people who repair the robots, or people who repair the robots that repair the robots.
So I was raising the possibility of self-repairing robots. Another suggestion.
Consider robots taking over all the jobs. What happens to artists and philosophers and scientists? Can robots actually take over those positions?
Yeah, philosophers and artists, anything, I guess that's similar to the idea of handmade goods, right? Something that we feel has a human value because a human being did it. Then even if the same painting or the same poem or philosophical treatise were made by a robot, it might not have the same human value to a human being. So that sometimes the way something was made has value apart from the detail of the artifact. Another suggestion?
Hi, I'm Gustavo. I design software for enterprise application. I just opened a company two weeks ago. And what I don't get is, why the end of the daily jobs is going to be bad? Because, okay, yeah, I think maybe most of the daily jobs, or the economy will be replaced by robots, but I don't think I can go to my previous client and say to everybody, okay, tomorrow you don't have to go to work, do whatever you dream, and maybe if you commit to the people to follow you, you're okay. I think they will be more happy, right? If I go there to the company and say, you don't have to come tomorrow, okay? You will have food, and you will have your home, you will still have your girlfriend.
The question is, why do robots want to bother to give them food? Instead of utilizing those molecules for something more interesting to robots?
Because there were, I don't know, but I really believe that the daily jobs are going to die. Because nobody wakes in the morning and say, I want to have a daily job, right? Now I want to do this company, before I wanted to design software, and later maybe I want to do other things. Usually, and I talk with a lot of entrepreneurs, and they don't want also to get money. Nobody replied, yes, I wanted to get money, that's the reason I opened the company. No, I wanted to help these people, or I want to sell my project, or I didn't want the waste in my previous company. I didn't want the waste in the engineers in my previous company. It was no meaningful work.
So I would ask the panelists to concisely respond to this question.
Yeah.
So we have just a few sentences each will be good. So we have time for more questions.
So everything in the universe is made of matter. Everything in this galaxy is made of matter and molecules. If we have the ability and the intelligence, super intelligence, to work out how to reorganize the matter in such a way that it's beneficial and can be shared by everybody, then we can turn inert, dead, unimportant matter, we can turn that into stuff that we want. But we have to have a society that agrees to share it fairly between the agents in the system. If we do not have a society that wants to share the resources equally, then we're in trouble. Well, most of us are in trouble. Maybe even all of us.
Well, when you talk about this trend of like growing with remotely working, you know, it was great. We encouraged a lot of remote collaborations. However, there's definitely the losing side of the humanity community. So it was funny because I used to work at Yahoo, and a lot of you might know that Marissa May, the new Yahoo CEO, ended their remote working because she realized that it was important to have a community in the company.
I think I'll just throw in some observations. If you look at, say, the US, there are a lot of incentives to keep people in the workforce. In fact, there are a lot of disincentives to getting out of the workforce. You lose health benefits, you lose things of that nature. And whilst I agree with what you're saying, there's a lot of sort of impetus within capitalist society to go the other way, to say, look, you have to work, to put pressure on you, and if you don't work, they will punish you, which is how they ensure people stay in the workforce. And I don't think that'll go away that easy, that impetus. We have to find some way to overcome that with maybe more English way of thinking. But it's not an easy problem. And it also touches on the one thing that I mentioned before, which, remember, we came from a world where everybody worked. When a person reached their use-by age in terms of use of work, they were often let out to die, as they still are in some, say, Inuit community, or they used to be 50 years ago. The contribution that members make to the society is what our evolutionary period, the time that we were created, that we fitted into that evolutionary niche, was such that it's endemic in us to want to contribute to our society around us, to be somehow seen to be providing value, whatever that value might be, whether it is a price or whatever it is, whatever. But the difficulty will be that how are we going to provide value in a world where we are insignificant in terms of productivity? That's the difficulty. Now, Ben, of course, spoke of one solution, which was merge with machines, or become one with them, or we can look at escaping the virtual. There are other solutions, but it's not an easy question. It's not an easy solution.
All right, you've got 2 minutes to enlighten us.
Well, the short answer is the devil makes work for idle hands. That's why we need to work. We're designed for it. That's what this is for. That's what this is for. It's our nature to work. The problem really is, as I said, instrumentally, we like tools. Like the little film there that started 2001, we love to work with tools, and that's instrumentally. But institutionally, we like teams. We like tools, we like teams. Take away our tools, take away our teams, we're nothing but just a lot of flies, a feral gang. And that's not good. Anyway.
All right.
Additional science.
That's it. I admirably agree. He had a question over here, which man gave the last one before lunch.
My question is, how important do you guys think giving emotional intelligence to robots? Like giving emotional intelligence to robots, like
intelligence is really important. And I believe that that will actually help us soften the fear of singularity, like all these robots will come and kill us and take away our jobs. And I remember there was an interesting discussion with myself and Ben and George while we were having humanity class at Harvard conference. And it was really interesting to me. I'm a designer talking to the robotist. And I think one thing that I highly emphasized, remember that conversation, was that, well, if you build a machine, you have to teach the machine just like you teach a child. You teach them the ethics, you teach them what is good, what is bad. And then, then perhaps your machine will be able to tell these are things shouldn't be doing, they will be harming people. You can't just build a machine that is super intelligent, but you have to build a machine that has good judgments.
I'll even go further than that. I think emotional intelligence is really the core of what everything important is. It's the basis of all morality in some respect. The trouble we have is, if you look at the old character Spock from Star Trek, it doesn't exist. Because even the desire to be logical is an emotional desire. Ultimately, it is the quality, the emotional response that causes us to do anything, causes us to want to react. So emotions are the core to human existence, and of those emotions, if you look at one of them, empathy, which is how we experience the feelings of other people, you'll find that everything that is ever determined to be good, inductive, if we go through human history, look at every action that has been considered to be good, it includes the idea of empathy. That includes one person sacrificing themselves for another person, for making another person feel good, possibly even themselves at a later stage. In points like this. So I think it's even more than to say emotional intelligence is important. I think emotional intelligence is human value. It's what we are, and that's the thing that I am concerned that we may lose in our haste to gain economic value.
Well, I just wanted to mention something really quick. It's funny. So in Japan, there's this robotic company, they start building emotions. So the robots are able to feel, but there is an incident happened because one night the robot started developing emotions to this intern that was working in the lab. And then that night when she was about to go home, he wouldn't let her go. so she had to call 911 and have her lab mates come in and help her release from this robot. So I think, there's definitely hurdles we have to jump through in order to develop this machine intelligence.
I think this has been discussed by an Oxford philosopher you might have heard of, Julian Savulescu. I know some people have heard of him. And he brings up an interesting question. Are we fit for the future? Now, there's been a lot of talk about engineering the machines to be able to, treat us well, and for the machines to be friendly. But are we currently in a psychological state now that is likely to be able to preserve the important values that we have? We get paranoid, we panic at signs of change, we get jealous, we get greedy. These are the sorts of things that may have had evolutionary advantages in the past, but may not be beneficial tomorrow. So it may be even worth then asking, should we be not only teaching ourselves, but re-engineering ourselves in the future so that we will be more moral? And this is this is a serious question, because we're already doing that. With technology now, we're re-engineering ourselves, but maybe we need to take it a lot further. Maybe we need to focus on discovering technologies that will increase the likelihood that we won't be sociopaths or psychopaths, and even breed friendly humans. It's an issue that's being discussed right now, even in China. Now, you may not have heard this, but there's a company in China, an organization that is focused on climate genetic underpinnings of intelligence. So there aren't projects doing this sort of thing right now, but I believe that we should be re-engineering ourselves to be more mobile, if at all possible.
To get on the point of that, the gentleman there is talking about conscious or empathic robots, which will also be super smart, so now they're going to be super nice. I'm already sick with envy, so it's, they're going to be effectively gods when that happens, which is, my self-esteem's already taken a battery already over this, so that's an issue, but obviously then we'll be merging with them, I suppose, at some stage, so maybe that will happily ever after. But it just sort of look at another problem about our current moral philosophy, which I think is called liberalism, or utilitarian liberalism from John Stuart Mill. That's the main one of the world. It is a good philosophy, it's served us well, but we need to be looking to where liberalism is taking us, where everyone doing their own thing. Because I think, apart from going to an Orwellian world of tyranny, we might be heading to some sort of kind of Lord of the Flies world of anarchy, with predatory males being the main danger. So that's one of the things about the singularity movement that I have a real problem with, is that they seem to be very much into technological constructivism, but against sociological conservatism. And I think it's very important that we hold on to some of the values of our ancestors. And again, China is a good learning cue for the West here. They worship their ancestors, they have a Confucian philosophy, and that may well be something, a rock, to hold on to whilst we head into this uncharted waters. We don't want to cut all our ties from the past, because we will be subject to the stormy weather that's coming. So a lot of the Eastern philosophies, Eastern governments, seem to have a better hold on than we in the West. So, that's just right.
Thanks, that's an interesting point. So we'll do one more quick question before lunch.
Hi everybody, my name is Pei Hua Ho, and I guess I know the US system very well and I know China pretty well, but I want to give you a couple of examples of how people fight this trend. 15 years ago, I visited a hospital in the US, and I discovered, we all know about computer system taking over a lot of the data processing. So in this hospital, they deliberately turned off some of the modules of the ERP system that they installed. So for example, if I sell wheelchairs to that hospital, I cannot send them a computer printed bill. I have to hand print a form and send to the hospital in order for the hospital to pay me. That's because the union members work with politicians, turn off such modules to preserve union jobs. So my point is, first, robot cannot vote.
Not yet.
And also in the US, I discovered over the past 30 years, there's an emergence of a class conflict. A lot of it's driven by such trend of lower participation rate in terms of workforce. So democracy or politicians will change. Maybe down the road, the system will be more a distributor of abundant resources. So everybody have a basic level of comfort. Then we can focus on things like art, music, designing clothes, or something that the robot couldn't figure out how to do yet. All right, that's my point. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we have a number of Australians here, and unions are very active in Australia. It's many relevant points. So we got to keep responses brief because we got some pizzas out there, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
No, I agree, Tommy.
Just Adam doesn't agree with that.
Agree with what entirely. Look, the thing is, from what I got from what you said, it seems as though there is a lot of systems out there that we depend on. And if we turned off these systems, for instance, delivering wheelchairs, or whatever it was in a hospital, a lot of people would suffer, a lot of people would die. But also the people turning on the systems, if they're internal to the company, they would be removing themselves from a competitive game between other companies. So I don't know if it's feasible. There may be variables that could take over the company and start turning off systems left, right, and They're much like the lovers did with taking axes to the weaving looms. I'd like to ask you, do you think that's a feasible way forward?
Well, I just want to say that from a capitalist point of view, true. If a organization decide not to implement some kind of automation, they lose their competitiveness and they will lose out in the marketplace. But there's a huge portion of the U.S. economy is not really capitalistic; it's socialistic. So this is a public hospital. So their funding is basically decided by politicians, and politicians working with the unions. They had a perfect, relationship. So we, as humans, we will figure out what we need to do first to survive, and then also to sort of contribute to the society. So if there's going to be abundance of food down the road, because robots will take over the farmers and then produce all the food that we can consume, then everybody will have a basic comfort level. Then we just worry about how do we make our society more beautiful, having more beautiful dances, more good music, more good paintings.
I just wonder though, ultimately, there's a lot of inertia and inefficiency in the democratic process. And ultimately, if the voter can have their health care costs be 30% lower, but have it more automated rather than paying people, ultimately, wouldn't the democratic process vote for people to pay less rather than preserve the jobs of those particular employees?
You're absolutely right. My personal healthcare expenses in the U.S., a family of 4, we spend about $5,000 on insurance. We're pretty healthy. We don't usually go to doctors or hospitals. So eventually, like the so-called Obamacare, eventually a lot of the health care benefit will probably become some kind of entitlement that everyone gets. So if you have your food, you have your health taken care of, you have your habitats taken care of, then what do, right? You worry about how to make people's lives better. There's got to be a way. I just don't see, because I haven't heard of any quote-unquote good poetry or music be produced by robots yet. I've seen all the industrial or even entertaining robots, like Disney has lots of robots.
There has been computer-generated music that people have thought was actually written by people. So, it's happened.
Yeah. And another thing is, if you look at the medical profession in the U.S., they are very anti-technology, way from the start. So they build a barrier, to prevent technology from coming into their fields and taking over their jobs. But still, they're not doing such a great job because they're already robotic surgeries nowadays.
Just a quick point.
Let's give the last word to our dismal scientists.
Actually, this is the first good news I've had all day. It's the Ricardo effect, which was discovered by the economists 200 years ago, where unions or rising wages, which typically were put forward by unions, and actually encourage beneficial technological substitution by improved technology, which is what you sort of see in Scandinavian countries, which have strong unions, good industrial awards and very nice governments. And providing you have intelligent people, well educated, the unions raise the wage rates, so the businessman then says, well, I'm not going to bother paying extra people, I'll pay the people in the job high wages, but I'll give them better tools. And so they invest in beautiful new machinery. But James's biggest competitor is Tarvik, I think, from Finland, and he will say himself that the unions that are paying high wages in the mines actually adopt and adapt well to the autonomous systems. That's correct, James? I know he's told me that. So in other words, that is a positive factor. That I'm pro-union, but more importantly, we need to protect the incomes and standards for labour, because the oligarchs will take it all if you don't. And that's what they've already done.
Can I just add one more point?
One thing we can do, coming back to a point said earlier, is Humanity Plus is a non-profit organisation, and we need memberships. We want a membership in China. I think it would be fantastic if we had a chapter here. And we need people to join, because we need finance. okay, to run conferences, to get things started like this, and generally spread these ideas and encourage people to talk about these topics before it's too late, before something happens and people suddenly react with a knee-jerk reaction. So I encourage you all to think about joining Humanity Plus. It's pretty easy, you just go to the website and there's a registration page. And that gives you the ability to have a say in how the organisation operates, and is a great platform for organising local events as well. That's all.
I was just going to say that there is always, you're going to hear, our society is very complicated, so there's always, the passionate and then there are positive, people like myself. And there is, always struggle with technology and finance and economic, and one thing we humans do is very interesting. We only missing things when they're no longer available, right? Like, like say myself, I'm here, and in the US there's a lot of organic food, and then yesterday I was trying to find many that I couldn't find here, and I was thinking, there's a for granted, right? And the same thing, like when a lot of machines are doing things for us, after a while we get used to it, and when you take away that, it's like, oh wow, actually machines are very helpful. So what we do, just like Adam says, we wanted to organize these kind of conferences, organizations, nonprofits, and we wanted to facilitate these kind of discussions so that we can educate people, so that people will be, instead of just like the politicians shuts down, more positive and understand technology in a more positive way.
We have one of our afternoon speakers. She's arrived just in time for lunch. Actually, that concludes the panel discussion. We have some of our pieces out there now. I think the others should arrive within 15 minutes or so. So we can go out and get started with lunch and